here, Natalie Bahbout and founder Kirsty Endfield.
Hello everybody, how are we doing? Good. Second to last talk, I think. So this one is all about positive developments in esports, so hopefully good vibes. Good way to end the week. I'll keep talking while we're setting this up. We often talk a lot about challenges in the industry and a lot of issues. We don't really take a chance to look at the stuff that's going really, really well. So that is our intention of this. We will talk about some of the issues that we're facing, but we'll put them into perspective. And I believe we're nearly there. Nope, not us. There we are. Cool, quick introduction to myself then. So I am the founder and director of Swipe Right PR. We are a leading communications agency dedicated to all things gaming and esports. And Nat? I'm the associate director of Swipe Right, which is the same company. And some of the brands we work with range from the likes of Red Bull, ESL Faceit Group, teams such as Vitality, including our wonderful host, the Esports Awards as well. So a broad spectrum. So our presentation is actually called Some Good News. I don't know if anybody knows what that reference is, but it actually comes from a YouTube channel that was set up during lockdown by an actor from The Office. The intention behind it, this is it. The intention behind it was to talk about all the positive things happening around the world. At a time when people didn't really feel that much hope. So that is kind of our intention today. And we will dig into some of the issues that we're facing first. Not quite there yet, but nearly. We'll do it in about 1 second. Other way? Oh yeah, that's it. That's good. Cool, so these are some of the headlines from just the last 6 months. I think coming into 2023 is probably the most negative the media landscape has been towards esports. And this comes from mainstream media for the most part, but this includes our endemics as well. It's a little bit doom and gloom, but we will explain why it's not all doom and gloom shortly. So looking at some of the sort of headlines and the things that mainstream media are pulling us up on, and I think when it comes to sort of traditional mainstream business media, there's been a bit of a sort of cyclical effect with these guys. So originally there was sort of moral outrage when it came to esports, and then we were sort of the billionaires of tomorrow, and now the bubble is bursting. So some of the things that they talk about for the most part is sponsorship. Some of you guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with the stat that 60% of esports revenues comes from sponsorship. And that's replicated, for example, in Guild's 2022 revenue was reported as 5.8 million, with 3.9 of that coming from sponsorship. So accurate. Brands who bought into esports futuristic vision, but they're now becoming more wary. So historically, brands have been very interested in sort of tapping into that Gen Z, Gen X, affluent audience that esports offered. An example that we saw with this was BMW leaving the esports space at the beginning of the year. And historically, these guys were one of the most supportive brands in esports. Likewise with the brands, the rise of platforms such as TikTok, they found it sort of easier to reach these demographics directly. They don't necessarily need to talk to them through esports. And then likewise, following the brands comes the investors. We see a lot of doom and gloom around investors sort of tightening purse strings and being more careful when it comes to marketing budgets. And to provide a bit of an explanation or a bit of background as to why we're seeing some of this negativity in the media. So a few misconceptions, I think, when it comes to mainstream press. They can be a little bit traditional, they can be a little bit conservative, and there's still this sort of deeply held belief that
we're all sort of basement dwellers. So I think that sort of underpins a lot of the negativity that we're seeing, and it's something to keep in mind. You know, that gaming is unhealthy and we're not necessarily aspirational. Macroeconomic circumstances, you know, the things that we're seeing are applying to, you know, all industries. It's not just us. Cost of living crisis, rising interest rates means everyone has less money, you know, consumers and marketing directors. And again, as mentioned, that reliance on sponsorship. Brands are much more risk averse. They're much less likely to sort of take a gamble on something like esports. And over to the good stuff.
Cool. So it's really when you start looking at the explanation that you can kind of see the wood through the trees, on the trees, through the trees. And you can start to actually see some of the good things that are happening. And actually, it's not really as bad as everybody's making out. So firstly, the problems that we actually face, they aren't specific necessarily to us. They are very much a worldwide industry, a multiple industry issue. But the difference with us is that we have the ability to adapt very quickly. That is something that we saw in lockdown. We continue to do that. And actually what we're finding now is there is a lot of optimism around how we are going to evolve. So how do we streamline stakeholder alignment? How do we become more efficient? And how do we find new revenue streams? In general, across the board, in terms of realistic viewership, you're actually finding that we have a growing player base worldwide. So as an example, Counter-Strike has hit a record of 1.3 million concurrent players this year. Mobile gaming is really finding its feet. You've got games like PUBG Mobile, which have probably one of the most robust competitive gaming ecosystems globally. Viewership is actually more than it was pre-COVID for most titles. We are also in a very unique position when it comes to how we engage with fans, how we sort of really optimize what we're doing in terms of our digital output. Web3 is obviously a really big fan engagement model that we are starting to leverage more and more. And then in general, actually we are seeing a lot of success and continuity when it comes to mainstream brands in the space as well. And we also just had the likes of G2 who report that they are turning a profit, which is great. They also just signed Jägermeister. And we have brands such as Red Bull, Gucci, who are really investing quite heavily in grassroots esports. That is incredibly important for the sustainability of our ecosystem. I didn't actually know that the CEO of G2 is here, so congratulations, well done to you. Wasn't intentional to suck up, but there we go. Moving on to a few specific examples of things that we should be shouting about. Women in esports. Now, there is a huge amount of work that still needs to be done. We are by no means finished in creating sort of a level playing field, but there are strides being made, and it's really important to acknowledge that. So we are starting to see honest conversations happening with different tournament organizers, esports teams who are actually investing a lot more time and money to create opportunities for women, to actually give them a platform to play, to express themselves, their creativity, and also hone their sort of competitive skills as well. A few examples that we've got, so in Valorant with Riot Games, you've got the VCT Game Changers Championship, which features 8 female Valorant teams from all around the world. Moonton, who are the creators of Mobile Legends Bang Bang. So they launched a female-only tournament last year in Southeast Asia. That is coming back with a bigger prize pool and even more all-female teams. And then you have the likes of the ESL Face It group, or EFG, who are really doubling down on their diversity and inclusion initiative, which is called GG for All. One of the products of that is actually ESL Impact, which is an all-female CSGO tournament with a $500,000 prize pool. And this year, they are expanding their output with 3 live events. Live events are also back with a vengeance. As many of you will probably know, they are incredibly important as a marketing tool, essentially. Great way to connect with fans, great way to connect with brands. They're also really great in terms of education as well for mainstream audiences who don't really know what we do, but it's a really important platform to sort of show them just how fun, vibrant, entertaining, and I suppose how connected we are to that sort of like sports realm. So in terms of the two most interesting areas coming out of live events for this year and the immediate future. The first is how tournament organisers are adapting their broadcasts. So we're seeing a rise of co-streaming through some really top content creators. It's a really interesting way to grow a fan base and also to engage with wider gaming audiences as well. We're also seeing that events are being held in new markets, and that they are returning to markets that we haven't been in for a very, very long time. So we have MSI currently happening in London at the moment. This is the first big League of Legends event to take place in the UK since 2015. And it was also run in conjunction with the Mayor of London. We also have the Blast Paris Major happening as well at the same time. Late last year, we had the IEM Rio event, which was the first time that an event of that scale was actually held in Brazil. It was the highest viewed ESL tournament and the third highest watched tournament of all time. They also sold out the arena within an hour of release. And then also looking at last year with the League of Legends World Championship, that boasted a 5.1 million peak viewer count, which was the second highest ever for an esports event. And two co-streamers actually contributed over 500,000 viewers to that tournament. And then finally, sticking with sort of the importance of content creators, we all know the value when it comes to having a content creator rep your brand. Essentially, you are getting more impactful visibility, it could be argued, than traditional media. But there's a lot more that they're doing at the moment. So the value of a content creator is they not only have unrivaled passion, they have incredible knowledge about how a game plays. And with that, we're starting to see how content creators are evolving their own business model. It's not just them creating content, it's them seeing how they can expand their brand. So you have the likes of Moist Moguls and Disguised Toast, who are creating or backing their own esports organizations. And then you have really big name creators like Dr. Disrespect, who have set up their own game studios. And he is an example of someone that is very much a core competitive gamer. And by creating those titles, you are essentially creating the next generation of competitive games, which is, again, incredibly exciting for the sustainability of our ecosystem. There are a number of other stories that we haven't touched on, but if you are keen to hear about more good vibes and other stories, please catch us at the bar later. Thank you so much.